Okay.
At 6 o'clock, call the meeting to order. Please stand and pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is the approval of the treasurer warrants. Payroll warrants for December 21st, December 28th, and January 4th of 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve the payroll warrants of December 21st, 2018, December 28th, 2018, and January 4, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Accounts payable warrants for December 26th, January 2nd, 2019, and January 8th, 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve the accounts payable warrants of December 26, 2018, January 2nd, 2019, and January 8th, 2019.
Did you second it, Ben? Yeah. Ben seconded it. All those in favor? Thank you. Approval of minutes for December 18, 2018. Are there any corrections? Yes, Kim.
I don't know if it's a correction or a clarification or appointing a lawyer or what. But at the last meeting during other board business, you, the chair, pulled out a public comment letter from a partial year resident, and you read it and asked for it to be part of the record. And it came under the other board business part of the meeting. And I didn't feel like it's appropriate for public comments to be included in the other board business part of the meeting. So I don't know if for the record, we can note that the public comment should be moved to public comment session, or if we need to make a statement for the record that we inappropriately read public comment during other board business, or what. But I feel like that needs to be addressed for the record.
How does everybody else feel? Catherine?
Well, I think as long as it's part of the record, I don't know if it makes all that much difference where it is, but perhaps she may be right. It is about a specific issue, which would come under other board business, I think, because I don't think that was on our thing last.
Yeah, we did have public comment at that point.
Yes, I know we had public comment, but I don't know if there was a specific, prior to that, a specific item dealing with school department meetings. I don't believe so. But
Well, the only reason I put it under other board business was the fact that I did not feel it was public comment. That was a letter to me, which I share with the board. That's board business. That's how I looked at it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I feel like if he lived in town full-time, he would have been standing at the podium to make that comment. Because he's not here all the time, he mailed us a letter. And in my opinion, the letter was full of opinion and hearsay, and it really shouldn't be considered other board business. He is not a board member.
Then fine.
Well, I'm glad you shared it. I mean, it doesn't really matter where it shows up, but, you know, if you hadn't shared it, I might not have seen it.
Well, I just think for the record, if someone in the future looks at the minutes and reads the packet, they're going to believe that it's our business to say the things that Frank Bernacco said. And that's certainly not how I feel.
Well, I'm looking at it as chairman of the board. I was expressing a letter that was sent to the board under other business. To me, that's not public comment. He's not the one that's making the statement. I'm reading the letter. But if you want to move it, if the rest of the board wants to move it, they can be more than, I have no problem.
I think it should be moved.
Catherine?
I think it's fine just where it is. It's part of the record, and I agree with your methodology and figuring out if that's why you did it and where you put it. I think that makes perfect sense.
If it's clearly shown here with his name attached to it, that is probably important.
Right.
I mean, it's not like it's your comment, it's clearly his comment.
And it
That's why I
came,
thought it should be public comment.
it came to here, not to my home. It was mailed here to the town office.
So if anybody mails a letter to your name at the town office, will it be part of the
Yes, it
other
should
board
be.
business?
Yes, it's part of our business.
So then anybody who wanted to make a public comment have more weight than just standing at the podium, they should just mail it to you? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That's what I heard.
No, that's not what I'm saying,
I'm
Karen.
sorry, again?
I'm saying if somebody wants to stand at the podium and make a public comment, that is fine. This gentleman sent a letter to me as chairman of the board to share with the rest of the board members, which is what I did. Not under public comment, under board business, because in my viewpoint, that was board business.
We'll have to agree to disagree, because that is not business that I consider to be board business. This was one man's opinion about something that, he's not even here. He could have stood at the podium, but he's out of town.
Well, people get up to the podium every time we have a meeting and voice their opinion. That's their right, and it's also this man's right.
But his opinion was included as other board business. I've said my piece. For the record, I would like to know that I do not believe that that is other board business. That should be public comment.
Ben?
I really don't mind, one way or the other, but I want to point out under this week's agenda, 11.b, letter from Kim Dolce, it's sort of the same thing, but rather than showing up under other business, it's showing up under the town manager's report. I'm just pointing out, I mean,
That
we
letter
do.
never came to me. It did?
I sent it
She
to
emailed all of
everyone
us.
who has an email address on the board and petition Mary.
All right, maybe it did.
So my practice has been, if I receive any correspondence from anyone and it comes to me, I typically put it in the next meeting's agenda so that it's part of the record. But that's anything that comes to me, that's what I do. So if you want it done differently, certainly pleased to do that. But that's why I try to put it in there so that it becomes part of the public record. And that's why it's under manager, because it came to my email, so.
So if I receive a letter from a member of the public who has opinions about a town matter, I can raise it and read it as other board business?
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
Absolutely.
I would have done yes. Is there any more discussion? Does anybody want to make a motion to move it or leave it where it is?
I'd just like to make a motion to leave it right where it is, if we need to do that.
Okay. Are you accepting the minutes as they are written?
So moved.
Any
Second.
discussion? All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Special awards, presentation of awards, we have none. Committee appointments. Deborah Pooler, reappointment to Planning Board. Lester Moore Senior, reappointment to the Planning Board.
I'll move to reappoint Deborah Pooler to the planning board and Lester Morse Senior to the planning board.
I'll second that, with thanks to them
For
for
volunteering.
volunteering to serve.
All those in favor? Any public hearings? We have none. Public comment on non-agenda items. At each regular selectman meeting, there'll be time devoted to any resident or taxpayer of the town of Wiscasset to address the selectman regarding any item that is not on the agenda for that meeting. Is there any public comment? Yes, Steve, please.
Good evening. I just, at the last meeting, on the 18th, I misspoke when I was talking about the parking issues down on Middle Street. I said it was a 2-hour parking zone. It's actually 8 hours. So I just want to, let you know that I went down the next day and looked. Yeah, it's 8 hours. So I was thinking of the no parking on the streets. My second thing I have to throw to is towards Charlotte. And after that last meeting, I read in the paper, it said Public Works employee Steve Christensen got up and spoke. When I come to these meetings, I do not come here as a spokesman for Public Works or anything else. I come here as a resident. So when that implies that I am a spokesman for the Public Works, I am not. I am here as a resident. That's it. That's what I'm here for. So thank you.
We know that.
Third thing is, it's been a year and 2 days and the boat's still sitting on the bottom of the river. Do we know anything that's going on with that? I know his case got moved. I think it got moved over to December, but I don't know what happened from that. I don't expect that you guys would know, but does anybody know what's going on?
Someone does, and thank you, Chief, for being here this evening.
That's all I have, thank you.
It's actually, it's coming up for disposition next Monday.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Is that when he'll be at the court? Is that what you're saying?
excuse me?
And will he be in court on Monday? Is that when the case is being heard?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's not being heard. The disposition, they continued it gave him all these things he had to do. So this is just a meeting to see
If he's
what
done
he's
them.
done. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else public comment? Yes, Kim?
You appointed a couple of people tonight to boards and committees, and I know it's been mentioned several times here before that it's not an easy thing to find people, and you commended them for their service, and so do I. I try to pay attention to what's going on, and it's made much easier when we the public have access to agendas and minutes, and I have gone online numerous times to look for them. I commend this board, which is our most important board, that you are always up to date with agendas and minutes. And if need be, if someone wants them, I can, and I do, I sign up and I get them sent to me in advance. But as for other boards and committees, it's a real mixed bag what's going on. There are a couple that are current. The school board appears to be current. Historic preservation does a pretty good job, and I commend them. They usually will turn on the streaming so that you can watch them. But, you know, there's an odd planning board that's on YouTube. There's an odd budget committee, but most of them don't bother. I realize not every committee meets in this room, but sometimes they do. And I'd like to know more what's going on with planning and budget and some of the more important committees and boards, but I mean, there are ones that have never posted an agenda, have never posted minutes. And I know that's going to fall on someone to do that. I mean, I assume, I would like to assume that the committees are doing those things anyway and that they're out there. And I realize it falls to someone to put them online. Maybe there's a high school student who would like to do some sort of public service, community service. I don't know. It would be nice though if those things were made available. And in terms of offering service several months ago, I was complaining about something or other, and Kim suggested that maybe I offer to help, and I said my life was crazy at the time. It is a little less crazy now, and if there are still committees that have applications and things like that that need to be reviewed, I do have experience writing instructions. My first career involved writing lots of instructions for middle schoolers, and my second career involved writing instructions for knitters. And both of those groups of people get confused often. So I would be more than happy to help if need be.
Thank you very much, Kim. Anyone else? Seeing nothing, we'll go on to department head or committee chair. We have nothing. Unfinished business. Comp plan update, next steps.
So in your packet, you have a memo that Mary Ellen from Lincoln County Planning prepared for the board, and she is here this evening to speak with you and answer any questions that you might have on the process. And so I would give you the opportunity to educate us.
Well, we're all part of a team here. So I think you've talked about comp plan in the past. I think early in the summer, I provided kind of this update about the current checklist for the plan and the grants that sort of award you a few more points if you happen to have an updated comp plan, a few things like that. So we were brainstorming the other day about how we could kick this into maybe a higher gear. It's kind of daunting. I don't know how many folks have read the comp plan lately, but this is the 2008 plan. And it's pretty daunting to say, oh, let's redo that. So I just wanted to propose that maybe you start off not with a full comp plan committee with 20 people and a charge to get it done, but maybe with an ad hoc group smaller that takes a look at this plan, figure out how much you've accomplished in this current plan, how much needs to be updated. It's a kind of a deep dive into what you've already done. And it kind of, I think your plan from 2008 or 7 is really pretty thorough. It's very good. So obviously, a few years have gone by. We've gone through a recession, and we're now onto a whole new community with new business opportunities and a new downtown coming along. So I think it's a great opportunity to try again at that. So thinking about an ad hoc process to kick this into something that could be done in a couple of months that would lead to more thorough recommendations for the comp plan group. Happy to share my copy with anyone that might want to.
Any questions from the board members?
What do you need from us? Do you need us to volunteer to be on the ad hoc committee?
I certainly think it would be a vote of the selectmen to say, let's charge the committee with a certain mission that gets done in a certain bit of time, right? You don't have to give it the whole carte blanche to do the comp plan, but to dive into what's been done and to look at how other towns have handled their process. I know Westport's involved in their update right now, and it's just really an excellent process for finding out what your citizens feel are priorities, helping you generate data for different kind of projects, and again, putting you in a place for hopefully being eligible for some grant money down the road in recreation and community development. So I would hope at some point you don't have to do it tonight, but I just wanted to get your sense of whether you'd like to have a small group getting going here by taking a look at the 2007 plan.
How many people are you thinking?
It's really up to you. I would say 6 to 8 people.
6 to 8.
Not a lot of people. Maybe somebody from Public Works or Finance, and maybe some former selectmen and former planning board folks. You now have a historic preservation commission. You've got a lot of other resources in town that you can tap. So I think you keep it small to get going anyway. It always can get bigger, right? But it's a challenge to get started. So having a modest goal.
Have we had much success in when we ask for people to volunteer for this type of committee? Have we had success in volunteers?
We have not. You may remember we sent letters to the previous comp plan members. We also put a big ad in the newspaper, and I know folks say people don't read the newspaper. I think some people still do, even the online version, and so we didn't. Some of the previous members are slowing down a bit and don't want to make that kind of commitment. I think it would be a good opportunity to bring it to some of our downtown folks to see what their vision might be for the future downtown, and then maybe get even a high school kid. I think it would be great to engage the students, but
Get somebody from the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce wasn't around when this plan was done, so they're sort of, another new voice in town.
Okay. I'd like to find a way to get people to take an interest and say, I want to be on. Here we go.
Right.
Our superintendent, maybe at like a September meet, the first, because we've been bringing this up probably since September, right? And then we've tabled it and moved it forward a few times. But Terry told me at the end of that meeting that she wanted to participate in the plan review.
So maybe I could just draft up something to send to Marion that would be sort of a purpose of this ad hoc group, pretty limited, so that you're managing it along the way, and then you could create a time frame, whether it can be done in a couple months, taking a look at this, and then posting a link for for the future?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, Mary Ellen.
Okay.
That way we have a consensus of what your plan is, what we're thinking of going, and getting people, maybe get the word out to get people to want to participate in it, and limit it to 6 to 8 members.
Just at the beginning of this, so you can get
Right.
something done. But
Right.
the town, you've got a lot of people, all you folks around the table that care very much about this community, and there's just more out there in all kinds of sectors and interests, and it'd be great if we could build towards a really wide-ranging committee at some point.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
I know coming from Westport, the selectmen there always are careful about putting a specific charge in front of every committee so that they're doing something that you want them to do, and I think that's very important as well. So to keep everyone on task theoretically, right?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So thanks, yeah. Thank you.
Delinquent property tax memo from Phil Saucier, Bernstein and Shore.
So I'm sure you remember when we met with legal counsel, the board had some questions, and Phil said that he would get back to you with the answers to those questions, and they were related to liability. And this memo that you have is in response to those questions. He is looking over our policy that we currently have, and will be making recommendations to the board for changes. So he's hopeful that this addressed your questions and is open to answering any more that the board may have.
Any comments from the board? Everybody okay on that one?
I think you did a good job
I
answering
think
that
so.
question.
Made it very clear.
Yeah, I didn't understand the change.
Okay, the boardwalk project deed information.
So as you remember, when the waterfront committee came before the board with Mr. Forst's nice model that he had done, there was some conversation about whether or not the town owned beyond the railroad tracks, if we'd be blocking any views. And so we researched and found all of these deeds. I am not an attorney, but at first glance, reading some of these, it looks like that the town owns the area that the visual conception of a boardwalk would be. It looks like, I'm sure you folks can read, just like I can, a lot of them, their property stops at the railroad tracks. That seems to be a defining marker. I haven't done any further research on it, but you do have the map that highlights the lots that we looked at. That's on the cover, and then each of the deeds, and we will continue to look at those. I have not given this to the waterfront committee yet. They met this evening and wanted to bring it to you first. So I will provide this to them for their further deliberation and to come back before the board.
One thing I noticed in reading over the deeds, the Craig Haggett and Barbara T. Haggett, it states right in there that they own to the low water mark. That was the only one in the packet.
What about the little garage? That one just says to the river, but it wasn't clear.
I think that needs to be clarified.
Yeah, the rest of them, it's pretty clear. It's on
Right.
the westerly side of the railroad.
Right.
So you just have a short boardwalk that stops.
I don't know, but I mean, I'm surprised that the rest of them don't say the same thing. That they don't, they all say the,
This is me.
I know. I read it 3 or 4 times to make sure I was reading right, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know really what I'm reading half the time. But, especially a deed. But I did notice that that was the only one that says anything about low water. Okay.
I believe Cheryl's is supposed to, it's a long story, but it doesn't say it here, but I believe yours does.
I would think that most of them on that
Well, it
river.
used to belong to the family, that's why I brought this up in the first place, because I knew that some of these deeds went to the low water mark, and it's silly for us to pursue this if we don't own the property to build it.
Correct, I agree.
And that's been my whole point, that we should find out whether or not we own the property, and
You're
we
correct.
put the cart before the horse so far.
Okay, our next item is to schedule a workshop date to update tax acquired property policy. We were going to do it in December, and with the holidays and everything, we chose January, so can we have a date that we want to discuss the tax-acquired property?
What do we need a workshop for? I know what it says here, but
I thought Bernice, clarify me in case I'm wrong, I thought the discussion of the workshop was that we were gonna go over each property. And,
That was part of it, but it was also to determine if we were going to use the land installment contracts
Right.
or not.
we were gonna take one meeting, because there's what, 12? Is there 12 people? 12 properties?
There's more than that, there's more than that once we're sending out foreclosure notices again on Thursday.
Okay,
So in 30 to 45 days after that, we will know exactly what we do have for foreclosed property.
all right. And I think part of the discussion that we had, if I remember correctly, was to determine whether we were going to, we've already owned the property at this point, what we were going to do with the property, whether we were going to give them 30 days notice that it's going up for sale, or,
Correct. We do have a dozen or so of those ones, yes.
I thought
And
that
they
was
are-
part of the workshop,
Yes.
if I'm correct.
And they are also part of the same ones that we're going to send out foreclosure notices again, make sure that we've done, and Molly's done a good job of looking up the abstracting to make sure that we're notifying all interested parties. And then we will follow through from there to make sure.
So that was the basis of the workshop.
Do we want to do it on a weeknight, or do we want to do it on a Saturday morning? It's probably going to take a couple hours.
So Bernice, would your advice to the board be that we should wait till we see how many of these new ones actually foreclose? Because we'd have to come back again to discuss those, right? Since you have a new bunch of them, would it streamline the process to maybe schedule a meeting in February when we have
After the
better?
foreclosure date has actually occurred, then we know what properties we have actually foreclosed on finally again, and do them all at the same time. We have had a couple that have been paid, and Mary and Bruce and I went over the list of people that are ready to be sending the foreclosure notices to. And after we reviewed it today, determined that we would send foreclosure notices to all of them. We didn't have a recommendation of any one property that we would ask you folks to waive sending a foreclosure notice.
Okay.
So do you want to look at February and see, or do you want to wait till we get a little closer to
Let's
February?
wait till it gets a little closer.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like the 12th of February that they will actually foreclose.
So the second meeting in February and bring it before you to schedule it?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And will the attorney have any more work done on that?
Yes, he was just looking for a
Yeah.
deadline of when we wanted to
Yeah,
have
so
that
that we would have more
policy.
information from him at that point in time too.
Okay.
I'm curious, you've all, I'm sure, thought about this a lot. What direction is the town gonna go in? I know we just put that meeting on for a month, but when we do meet, just looking at the pieces of property, what is that gonna tell us? Because then we're gonna wanna know who lives there and whether they have kids, all kinds of things. And I'm not sure that we have the resources to answer those kind of things.
I thought we were going to get
It's
together.
pretty clear cut.
Yeah, and we were going to make some hard choices. I thought that's why we were going to
That's
do it as a
my
separate part of the
assumption.
meeting. And, based on you were going to update that spreadsheet and organize them by, making an effort, haven't heard from them in 12 years. And then we were going to vote to sell those properties or not.
I know where you're going, and I feel the same way, especially if there's a family with children involved. I really, truly do. But, and this is the big but, if they have not responded to every letter that the town has sent out and giving them 60-day notice, 30-day notice, threatening to sell the property, threatening to do everything, and they just ignore it, we have to do something, because that's sending the wrong message to the rest of the taxpayers as far as I'm concerned. I'll be honest, why am I paying my taxes if people get away with not paying them?
I agree with everything that you just said. I'm not,
And I don't want to put children out on the street either, don't take me wrong, I don't want to put children out on the street. But I really think it's a situation, if they know that that house is going up for sale in 30 days, they're gonna try, I hope, to do whatever they can to keep that house.
well, the notices she's sending out now, I would imagine that probably they're repeat customers.
They probably are, they've got a circular file and they put them in the circular file.
Some are circular files and some of them pay their taxes every year. They pay the year that's foreclosing. There are some on there that will pay when we send out those foreclosure notices.
But there are that owe several years,
There are,
not just 1 year
there
or
are.
2 years.
There are, and we also sent out sewer foreclosure notices, and those actually foreclose on Friday of this week. And there's a half a dozen of those that I talked to Stacy today, that have not paid either, that we need to determine what we're going to do with those foreclosures as well.
I mean, if they came into the town office and said, gee, is there something can you work with me, and then I'd say, hey, let's work with them. But they're completely ignoring, as far as I'm concerned, they're ignoring everything.
They haven't even filled out the homestead exemption applications that we sent them, some of them.
The thing is, the town, before I was on return to the board, did this and offered some of these. And except for a couple of exceptions, it was a colossal failure. Why would we go through that a second time? That's a lot of paperwork for the town office to do for nothing.
So then,
So I thought that's what we were gonna do, was foreclose and sell.
Yeah. We're
That's
gonna
what I
clean up
thought
the
we were
list,
going
you
to
wanna
do.
clean up the list, right? We have this list that's been lingering on for, it sounds like decades. We're gonna clean up the list and then move forward.
I mean, we've taken care of land, we've all agreed on that, but now we're at a point where we're gonna have to look beyond the land, and we're gonna have to look at people with homes.
And we're not set up to do that. Are we gonna get in cars and go to every one of these homes and see who lives there and what's going on?
No,
How are you gonna determine then who
You
you're
go by
gonna
the
throw
tax
in?
it's not very pleasant, but I think that if you're not making an effort or reaching out or making a phone call or paying your taxes, then it's pretty simple. We're not running a social service here. And I'm a lefty liberal, so come on, man.
No,
And we have to do
I'm
this
just
work.
trying to get to it. I'd rather say anybody who hasn't paid for 3 years, that's it, we're taking your property. I don't wanna spend a half a day looking over stuff and just wasting our time. We get serious or we don't, I guess.
Well, I thought that's what the workshop was about, to get serious.
It's a big list.
This is a list of people that have not paid their taxes. We have foreclosed. As of this date, the town officially has foreclosed, they own the property. What does the Board of Selectmen want to do with each individual piece of property from here? We're gonna list it for sale. We're going to keep it for ourselves, which there may be some properties that the town wants to keep for whatever reason.
And I'm
Or
gonna
you're
ask,
do as
okay,
installment
I'm gonna
contracts.
ask you, is there a family of 5 living in this house? Is it one person who's a non-resident? Is it a retired person?
How would we know any of those answers completely? Because Bruce has gone around to some of those houses. And I mean, we found some that, in looking more thoroughly, there's a house in particular that he went and looked at either yesterday or today. The person that owns it doesn't live there, it's rented. We're sending the mailing address of his bill to another address in Wiscasset still. He's still getting a homestead exemption. So you tell me who's living there, you tell me who's entitled to be living there. He hasn't paid his taxes.
And I'm gonna ask the $64,000 question. What difference does it make how many people live in the house? Or whether they're,
Then why bother me? We just pass a motion that you pay your taxes or you pay the consequences. We're aggressively going to follow the law as the state puts it forward. Wouldn't that be simpler?
well, I think you need to look at the list and see who's on that. Let's see how far back they go. I'd like to see who's on the list,
Yeah.
myself.
We had this
Maybe,
conversation.
and we've had, Kim's
She
right.
brought us the list.
We've had this conversation now, I
It
think the
wasn't
last 2
simple.
years, as far as I know, we've talked about it and tried to get people to pay their taxes. And we've gone through the, sending them a letter, sending out the home exemption form. We've sent, with the tax bill, we've done that. We've gone to them and said, hey, we'll try and help you, we've got a plan to help you pay your taxes. They go into it, they don't bother. What I'm trying to say is, how many times are you gonna send out that letter and be ignored? And they're not gonna pay your taxes. And I don't care, I'm sorry, it doesn't make any difference how many people live in that house. Somebody is responsible for the taxes on that property, and they should be paying it. Just like you pay your taxes, I pay my taxes. We all pay our taxes.
The thing is, Bernice brought us the list, and it was lengthy. We spent probably an hour and a half looking at addresses and sort of grappling and going back and forth. It was a big daunting task, and we decided that what would be better for us, two things: to figure out what document to use, and then to have a separate meeting so we didn't have to sit in the middle of this meeting and spend 3 hours going through them one by one and deciding, are we going to sell or not sell because of the history, the information Bernice brings to us. We agreed that we would do that, so.
I mean, if you don't want to have a workshop, I mean, that's fine. I mean,
Just give us direction.
Just-
Whatever you want to do.
I want to have a workshop.
Yes, Bob?
If I could just bring up something just a little bit different, but after the meeting we had and listened to the attorney, I don't think that I want to go forward with this payment agreement thing where it ends up that we lend money and then try to get it back. It just sounded to me like that was just another level of government that we don't need to deal with. Plus the legal fees involved with drawing all this paperwork up. I mean, we all know what the law is. You pay your taxes, or it goes in a lien, and the lien matures and it belongs to the town. So it shouldn't be too hard to communicate that to people, and to then move on to another step where you lend them money to pay the taxes and then expect them to pay it back. It just seems useless.
I feel like the reason that we did that was because of the, well, there was a resident who came, she came to 2 or 3 meetings in a row, and she's in a situation where she's been making an
Yes,
effort.
but what I'm saying is that as was, you mentioned earlier, we're not talking about the people that are making a serious effort to pay. We know that because the treasurer lets us know. So we don't really need an agreement to keep them doing it. We're going to assume that they're going to keep doing it. If they stop, then they'll slip down to the next level, which would be the people that don't show any interest in paying.
Right.
I'm not disagreeing with moving forward with this. It's just, I think that Ben probably has the right idea. Let's just draw a line, and the people that haven't paid anything for 3 years, or whatever you decide, we just take the property. And the people who have been showing an effort and making payments, they're at a higher level where we won't take the property as long as they continue to make those payments, or some effort.
So you're going to do an installment contract with those people that are making
Well,
honest
no, I
attempts?
think, it sounded to me like the installment contract we had was not very well worded. And what he was proposing was infinitely more complex, where we was actually in the process of lending them money and then to pay the taxes and then collecting it back from them. And it just didn't seem like something.
But from my understanding, it's either going to be one or the other, because once it has automatically foreclosed, we're not supposed to accept payments unless there is some arrangement made for those payments to be accepted, which is why the land installment contract is the option. And there were 2 of them, if you remember. There was one that was 5 months or less, and there was one for more than that.
Right, and it
He
got
really
more
didn't-
complicated.
And he really didn't recommend the one that was more than 5 months, because it does get more complicated and you really have to go to court to foreclose on it. It's not a simple foreclosure like the tax lien is.
See, that's what I was trying to avoid. I mean, I think this is already complicated enough, and it's also, a very difficult job. And we don't want to make it any more complex than it is if we can possibly stay away from that.
So I understood that we had to take them one at a time. If we don't have to take those properties, we don't have to, we can just tell you, go ahead
You
and
can
sell all that
you
property?
can tell us to contact the realtor with this list of properties and let her have at it.
Well, I think your point that there might be properties that the town would be interested in, I think that would be something that we should.
Well, that's what I thought the purpose
Leave
of the
glance.
workshop was.
It's really a combination purpose. I mean, is there anything that we do want to keep for whatever purpose?
We could bring those forward to you if we thought that there were any that might be of interest to the town. We could go through the list and see if there's any that, I mean, that would be a very short list.
Right, and that would be a pretty easy discussion.
So we could do that, sure.
Are there any non-residents on these lists? I'd vote to go after them tonight.
You
No,
vote
no
what?
problem.
What did you say?
I would vote that we
Oh.
go after them now. Why would we show
But,
them?
but similarly to what you were asking about earlier, is do we know if there's 5 kids that are living there, whatever? I mean, it's like I said, we have this property, and we have a couple of them that still have homestead exemptions. But yet we're mailing their tax bill out of state. Does that mean they're not a resident anymore?
How can you have a homestead exemption if you're not a resident?
That's what I'm saying, is,
Because
are
if
they
you
still a
use it,
resident and they're part-time getting their mail somewhere else? Are they in a nursing home and their mail's going to a sibling or a child? I mean, those are things that none of us are gonna know the answers to.
But we can find out. Though there's very few of those, so we could send correspondence to that address and let them know that as of April 1st of this year, that will be removed and what the tax impact is. And perhaps we would get a response. We could try that.
So what is the board's pleasure about having a workshop? Do you still want to have one?
Judy, I thought that when we looked at the list, and maybe it was the first meeting in December, the first time we looked at the list, or was it further back?
I think it was further back.
It was further back, so, and it was very complicated, and there were a lot of caveats and interesting questions, things to consider. It wasn't something where we could just cut and dry agree that we want to just foreclose on all of these. So we were like, reorganize the list, let's look at it again. I thought then at the next meeting, sometime in December, we dealt with property, but there's still all those individual homes. I feel like I would like a workshop to go through them carefully before I voted to sell the property. That's my
If we
personal
took care of personal property, is that correct? We've taken care of that.
the land.
It's just tax property that we have to deal with at this point in time.
Improved tax
Oh.
property.
Yes.
Don't really mean to interrupt, but getting on that personal property, we wrote off this old personal property debt.
We left 6 years on the books,
All right.
that's statutorily.
But
still-
there's got to be a lot in that 6 years.
That Molly has sent out notices to them saying the next step is we're going to take you to court. And she has received some payments.
Okay, well, I just didn't want that to slip away.
No,
That I felt,
well, because we are not writing
Okay.
off again.
I was surprised to find out that we was gonna have to write off all that money. Nobody had ever mentioned that to me in all the years that I've been a selectman. I don't know, most of you have been a selectman here for years and years, and then all of a sudden somebody says, geez, that just dropped off the edge of the table, it's gone forever. And another year is rolling up, getting close to the edge. I wanna make sure that that doesn't happen again, ever.
And I thought that was the idea of the workshop, sorry Bernice, but that we would clean up the whole list from the past and then have some instrument, whether it's what the lawyer recommended or something else, moving forward so that it doesn't ever happen
Well, no,
again.
I'm talking only about the personal property
Well,
now.
all of that, there's personal property and land and,
Well, it has to be handled differently because the real estate taxes never drop off the edge of the table. But this personal property is. So we need to handle it differently and we need to be more proactive.
well, I would like to be proactive with all of it. Like, we struggle, right, to have revenue up, and I don't think we're in a position as a town to not collect all the taxes.
No, and we just wrote off a bunch of them and that's what annoyed me.
And it hurts our cash flow.
Well, Bernice, if you really look at, if you compare, correct me if I'm wrong, we did that with the personal property, we had to write some off. After so many years on personal property tax, we can't accept, once we own it, we can't accept payment on that, is that correct? Unless we have an agreement
For real estate.
for
yes.
real estate. So eventually, won't that money have to be written off the books eventually?
No, because we do have a lien in place, but what the attorney told us is, once it's foreclosed, without some sort of agreement, we should not be accepting payment.
And we can't even request payments.
No, not unless you have an agreement. Once it's foreclosed, it's the end of the line, folks, and the town owns it and needs to decide what to do with it.
So that's basically where we are at this point on some of the properties, not necessarily all of them, but a lot of the properties, am I right?
All of the ones we're gonna be sending foreclosure notices on, once that foreclosure deadline date hits in February, the town automatically has foreclosed on it and the town owns it. The town then needs to decide, are we going to keep it? Are we going to sell it? Are they going to do some sort of an installment contract, because we know they're going to make payments on that? That's basically your three options.
Okay.
Keep, sell, installment contract.
So the second meeting in February, I'll bring this up again to whether or not you want to schedule it, and we'll let you know where we're at and what we've collected.
Okay.
Will that work?
That sounds reasonable.
Okay.
Well, the ones you're gonna be foreclosing on in a month or so, do they represent the 2017 tax bill,
Bill,
16.
16s,
the 16 tax bill?
yes. We just went to legal 17s in the fall.
And when you say foreclose, you mean we're taking ownership?
It automatically forecloses and the town has the right to sell.
Is that what we've done with all the others in previous years?
No.
We haven't, so this is,
You foreclosed,
But we haven't.
but you haven't done a thing.
okay, we foreclosed on all of them, we haven't.
We've done not all of them, there are some, for whatever reason, we didn't send out foreclosure notices, which is why I wanted to make sure the people that have not paid their 2016 taxes, Marion had Bruce look at all of them, then Molly's looked through all of them to make sure that they're not something that the town is going to be in harm's way by sending this foreclosure notice out and taking ownership of it. Now, as the attorney says, we aren't taking ownership of it as long as there's still somebody living there, so we aren't liable. But we have the right to quit our claim on that property by selling it, and we will issue the buyer a quit claim deed.
But when we foreclose, is the deed of that property turned over to the town of Wiscasset?
There's not actually paperwork that's done for a deed, no.
The lien matures.
The lien matures, and the automatic foreclosure is just that, it's automatic.
Mhm.
And the only way that the town can sell it is by issuing a quitclaim deed. We would never issue a warranty deed.
And most of these homes that have this, that we're gonna be foreclosing on, I assume do not have a mortgage, because I don't understand why a bank is letting it get this far.
That is true.
Okay.
But you gotta remember, some of them are owner finance too.
Okay.
Would you not know that if they were owner financed? Might not know that?
If they were owner financed, only if the person that financed it didn't record something at the registry. That's what Molly's been working very diligently on in the last week or two, is to verify everything that we have for property. Is there an owner finance? Is there a bank finance? Is there any other, I mean, we have to notify the IRS, we have to notify the state of Maine, anybody who has a vested interest in this piece of property.
Do we find out if there are any other liens on that property besides
We
us?
find out everything. We go back, we look at the registry under this person's name, Joe Blow's name, and we pull it up and we find the deed and we find anything else that's related to that property. The only way we would know is if it was not recorded at the registry of deeds, which does happen sometimes. The other thing that you'll find is that there is an owner finance, and you may notify them, and they didn't discharge when they were fully paid either. But whatever is recorded at the registry, we get that information, and then we notify any of those interested parties by certified mail, so that we have proof that it was sent and claimed or not claimed.
Our liens take precedent over everybody else's,
Except for the IRS.
except the IRS. All right, I'll bring it up again. I don't see why we don't move tonight to take action against any non-resident. It's a good place to start. I don't need to waste a Saturday talking about non-residents. If they owe us taxes, we take their property.
There is one other exception. If they're in bankruptcy, we can't foreclose.
Okay, if it's a non-resident, if they should owe taxes, take it. Why would we wait? It's a good way of starting and showing we mean business.
It's what we decided to do when we had that rather thick packet in front of us that I haven't now seen in 6 weeks or so. So I just feel like this board agreed to spend more time looking at it when we had done all the reading and it was at the front of our mind and we had the packet in front of us. So now it seems really simple, right? Because we haven't seen the packet for 6 weeks, but for some reason we agreed that we needed to spend more time on it. I hesitate to take action now without bringing the packet back and spending some time rereading it. I've just got a lot on my mind. I don't remember everything that was in there. We agreed that we needed to spend more time then for a good reason, I assume.
Well, we didn't have a good reason.
But we could get a packet ready and give, email them to you, via email for you to have to look over.
And it will give us some information, and maybe it doesn't matter to other people who live there, but it's easy to talk about this stuff, but when it comes to the point of throwing kids out on the snowbank, it's something else.
Well, that's
I don't
why-
know if I have what it takes. And that's why I'm going other ways to get there.
Catherine just made a very good point. That's a reason for the workshop, is to sit there and really, we're taking time here now in a public meeting. We should have a workshop to sit down and discuss everybody's viewpoint. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to see the town of Wiscasset going to solve our problems with people who don't pay their taxes? I mean,
And to perhaps find out if there's a family of 5 kids, with 5 kids in it that's living in one of these places. So that to me is a reason for a workshop.
Okay,
Are
so,
we gonna have that
Just a-
information available to us on every piece of property we're gonna be
yeah,
discussing?
I'll give you the tax card and everything.
And I mean, Molly knows a lot of the people in town,
So does
and
Bruce.
Marion does, and so does Bruce, so that they would have some history that we can get whatever information we can on each piece of property.
That would be.
I think the board's making more work for itself than it needs to. That's-
It's hard work, but
But a non-resident is a different conversation, Ben. I don't know how the board feels about that. If you're a non-resident, you don't live there.
well, if they're a non-resident who's living there,
Right.
Yes.
they could be renting it.
Right.
But we've got to start someplace.
I personally don't want to do anything till after we have a workshop. I think we need to sit down. I agree with Catherine. We need to know what we're doing. Or it's going to be another thing that we're going to lift up the rug and shove everything under the rug, and we can't do that anymore.
I've never suggested for a moment we shove anything under the rug.
No.
But I think
I'm
we
just
need,
suggesting your approach is going to cause this board all kinds of work, and we're going to spin our wheels.
I don't think
we're spinning our wheels right now. This whole conversation is spinning our wheels. We had this conversation, we agreed to have a workshop.
Well, I never did. I'm speaking my mind like you speak yours.
okay.
We
Okay?
did agree to have a workshop.
So, do we have a consensus of the board that we want to have a workshop?
Let's just do the workshop.
So
Okay.
second meeting in February, after the foreclosures, we'll have an updated list of who paid and who didn't.
Okay,
And we'll bring it back to you.
okay.
Okay?
With as much information as we can possibly gather.
That would be really helpful.
Okay.
Wait a second. You're talking a meeting in February. Is that, in that meeting, we're going to set up a workshop? The date of a workshop? We're not going to discuss it.
No, we're gonna set the date.
You're going to set the date.
We'll
You'll
set the
have
date.
information, so you'll have time to.
We'll set the
review.
date for the second meeting in February.
Yes.
The
Okay.
workshop does not need to.
Okay.
No, it doesn't.
And I'm sure there's some NRSA thing that we could do that.
Okay. So we're all set on that one? We're gonna set a date for the workshop and our second meeting in February.
So can you guys vote at the workshop?
Hmm?
Is this just for informational purposes? We aren't gonna, you guys can't vote at the workshop, right?
No, but we can reach a consensus.
We can reach a consensus.
Okay.
Then we'd have to, I assume we'd have to do something in a public meeting at that point.
Or you can just direct staff at the workshop. I mean, it doesn't, you've already gone through the legal process of filing the liens, filing the notice of foreclosure. You've already done all the legal part of it. This is just a human discussion about what do you want to do. So,
Yes, Kim?
I'm curious why you can't set a date now. I've been here for this conversation before. You're all here, you all have your calendars. Why can't you set a date for your workshop now? You'll be one step closer.
Well, we need to, am I correct, we need to wait till the letters of foreclosure come out with the
The
date of
letters are going
foreclosure.
out Thursday and they foreclose in 30 days after that.
They close in 30 days after 30?
So you're aware of that, so
We
you
have
could
to
set,
set
still set your
45,
workshop
we're
date.
closer to 30 than the 45.
So you could set it,
Let me go get the exact date that they actually want to close.
Okay.
thank you, Bernice.
Do you want to continue
Yeah, you can
on
do
the
that.
agenda? All right, let's go on to the 2019 fireworks display agreement.
So you may remember that we went out to bid and the board awarded the contract, and this is just authorizing the signing of the contract.
So moved.
I'll second it. All those in favor? 5-0.
That was easy.
That one was easy.
This one's gonna be easy too.
Oh, this has to be signed by Mary, not me.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, that's not my signature they want.
Doesn't have all those lines on it, I just need it.
Okay, let's go under new business until Bernice comes back, we'll continue. Sewer abatement application, Donna Morris for $440. I read over this and I couldn't make heads or tails of what's going on.
Ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm going to keep this really simple for you. You receive this application for an abatement request. You have a policy that the board adopted, and I highlighted in yellow. It requires that for any adjustments or abatements, it has to be done within 30 days of the bill date. This application came in well past the 30 days. So you have a policy that says you don't do it, and I would recommend that we follow that policy.
She's saying that she never received the bills, is that what she's saying?
Yes, except that they didn't come back. Let me just leave it at that.
But there was usage.
Yes.
If I look at her,
And they received the notice when the shut-off was going to be.
oh, okay.
So,
So do you want a motion?
Yeah.
I do.
I move that we do not approve this.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bob.
Is the accusation here that the meter was either wrong or was read wrong? And tallied up a bill that this person possibly didn't know?
I
But it
only
took
know
them months to figure it out?
that's their claim. When I spoke with Stacy at the Water District, who we contract with Wiscasset Water to read our meters, they read them electronically, they said the meter was functioning. And that their statement had been made to them at some point in the conversation that they had used water to wash something, and so. We don't do this directly, the town, we contract with Wiscasset Water to do this for us. But the biggest point of all, to me, is that you get a water and sewer bill quarterly. It's been happening, it's not a surprise. It's like if you don't get your tax bill, you look for it. And you may remember, for those of you that were on the board, we adopted this policy because this was happening all the time. People say, I didn't get my bill, I shouldn't have to pay this. And so we adopted a policy so that there are rules and there's a limited liability for the town as to how long you're going to write off sewer bills.
Well, if you look at it, she says that the apartment was unoccupied from 7/3/18 to 10/1/18. But if you go to the usage, it shows 9/26/2018 that there was 55 actual CONS. For a bill of $484.88. So they were using the water.
Somebody was using it, yeah.
And she says that somebody was in there painting, whatever have you.
And washing the deck, that's in one of the
Right.
paragraphs.
So I think she's just asking to have the sewer part enough, because isn't it true that in our town, we don't actually bill for sewage? Sewage is based on the amounts that we bill for water. So she's saying we did use the water, but there was no one there using the sewage, so could you, isn't that how it works in our town?
Yes.
We don't have like a sewer meter.
There is such a thing as a sewer meter. If people want, in the policy, if people want an exemption continually, they can put in a sewer meter that can be attached, that will read exactly. I'm sure when Bob was road commissioner, you heard a little bit about this, that there is a sewer meter, and we do have them at the plant. They are available.
So, but this person doesn't have one, and they're saying because they maybe didn't know about the sewer meter, but could we just waive the sewage fee because they weren't there? Because the sewage fee is just.
They have both, they have the sewer and the water.
Right, the water is based on usage, but the sewage is based on
She
water.
paid the water bill,
Right.
but why did she pay the sewer bill?
Because
It doesn't make any sense.
That's what I mean, it says right here's a copy of the bill, and it says paid water, but she didn't pay the sewer.
Right, because the sewer isn't actually usage. The fee on your bill, unless you have one of these meters, is just based on the amount of water, because they figure what comes in must go out. That's how billed. So she's saying she didn't fix this or something. I don't know what she's saying, but she was.
Well, if they used water, then they used the sewer, so I mean,
No, not if they power washed it and went into the ground.
But more importantly, you have a policy that says within 30 days of receiving the bill, if there's an error, you have to come in and ask. It's just like a tax abatement. You have so many days that you can come in and ask for an adjustment. This is well past that window.
Okay, I second Catherine's motion.
and how can we, in the second place, how would we grant a sewer abatement? Oh, I never mind, okay, I'm thinking something else. Okay,
Sure.
yeah, yeah.
All in favor?
Senior moment again.
It's all right.
I would say that's quite a bit of water usage for going through the meter anyways,
Yeah,
a lot.
Those are really dirty sets.
okay, so we have a motion
And a second.
and a second. All those in favor? 5-0, okay, thank you. All right, Bernice, back to you.
It is February the 11th,
February the
which
11th.
is a Monday, the week between your two meetings.
So we could meet on that Tuesday, the 12th? They will be gone by the 11th, is that what you're saying?
11th is the last day they have the chance to come and pay us,
Okay,
but we do accept a postmark.
all right. So we could do it on the February 12th? That's our non-Tuesday.
Oh, we've got to do it, that's a good idea.
I was just wondering, is there any way we could pick like a Wednesday night instead? Because that's the school board meeting night, and then I feel like we always meet on the night, and I'd like to go, half our taxes are going to the school, I'd like to sit at that meeting and see what they do over there.
Actually, maybe on our night.
That's good.
Well, let's not discuss that part of it either. Let's not
I mean,
get into
could we do
that
I don't have a
discussion.
problem.
I don't care what night we meet.
Wednesday is fine. So I
Wednesday's
mean,
Days is-
Wednesday the 13th.
The
Wednesday, the
13th of
13th.
February.
That's the budget committee meeting.
So they can sit over there.
Well, they'll meet we can offer them another.
Good, we maybe start this meeting at 5 o'clock.
Sure.
Sure.
I can do 5 o'clock.
I could do 3:15.
Don't push it.
I could, just say.
Okay. Wednesday the 13th
5
at
o'clock.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Write it down quick before you change your mind.
Wednesday, the 13th.
Oh, I already did, but it ain't gonna work.
Stop pushing, Ben. Stop
Sorry.
pushing. Okay. February the 13th at 5 o'clock, we'll have
So far
a
off.
workshop on tax-acquired property. Now, quick claim deeds for Robert and Misty Gagnon.
Which are success stories, they were on that list you got back in November. when
And they paid
I
their
put it.
taxes.
They paid their taxes.
I congratulate them. I make a motion to issue a quick claim deed to Robert and Misty Gagnon.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Madam Chair, did we get an answer on the supplemental that we issued a month or so ago?
What's up?
Yes, why you didn't do the other year, right? Yes, I asked Ellery about that, and he was gonna look back through his things, he'll be here Monday then. I sent him an email, he said he thought he had done everything, but he would double check, so. And he'll be here Monday, it's on his list of things to do, yeah.
Okay.
No, I
I
made the
think it's
motion.
passed when he can do it, I think it's something that the board's gonna have to do, but he was gonna double check that. Because he can only go back so many years.
I think,
But we can go back 3.
Yes, you can, yes. But he was gonna double check that and see if it was past his date. So,
okay, the next one is the discussion of the school fund balance.
So this morning, Bernice and I and Kim joined us. We had a very positive meeting at the school with the chairman of the school board, the superintendent, and another member of the school board. And we talked about the fund balance. And Bernice actually has a copy of the memo from the superintendent about what their plan is to use the over the 3% fund balance. The good news that we've learned is the reason that they had more money is because their tuition was unexpectedly up. So that's a positive, I think. They have more tuition students than they had planned on. And so this is her memo. Obviously, it has to go through the budget process, but they do have a positive plan. And this is just information, requires no action from the board. I just want to let you know, Kim, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not. But it was great to be invited to the meeting. We appreciated the invitation, and there was a lot of give and take, and so I think we're making some positive steps.
Yes, Catherine?
I'd like to thank Bernice and for all the work, because this obviously was a lot of work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernice.
For this and for everything, for cleaning up like all of the books. My goodness.
Any other comments regarding this memo?
I'll just let it went well. Thank you, Mary.
So is this the schools to do with as they see fit? Barring town people approval?
It has to be a town meeting approval, and it has to come from the board of
The school.
But it says here, I'm gonna ask the $64,000 question.
Again,
Yeah.
128,000.
Did they plan on using the money to pay down the energy project?
part of,
Part of it.
Well, they proposed that. It would be a proposal, right?
but it
But,
would have to come to the townspeople for their,
okay, because according to their, what you printed out from the school, it has to be used to reduce taxes. So that's.
it can be used, for whatever the townspeople vote on. But what the school is recommending is that they're going to recommend part of it be used to offset taxes for the school. Part of it they'd like to put into a reserve for future repairs and maintenance to the building. And part of it they would like to pay down some of the debt on the energy project.
I wonder if that's going to be 3 separate articles.
That I can't tell you, but that's the direction that they're looking at when they're putting together the 1920 budget.
Okay. Good.
All right.
Okay, pool permit for 322 Willow Lane.
Have a motion to
Yeah.
accept the grant. I will make a motion that we approve this request for the telephone pole and Willow Lane.
I'll second it. Bob seconded. Okay, all those in favor? Thank you.
I figured I'm probably going out to Catherine's house.
No, I have
No, it's not that far out.
It's right where the power lines cross. It's that little tiny piece of land there.
Okay, town manager's report.
So we have, in your packet, you have notice of a $100 donation that was received from some folks for service that they received from our EMS department. The department has sent them a thank you, but just wanted to let you know that Miles Mace donated $100 to the EMS department for their good work. We also received a thank you letter from the Good Shepherd Food Bank, and for New Hope for Women and Healthy Kids. So wanted to bring those forward to you. Those are some of the nonprofits that are funded, and it's nice that they acknowledge those gifts and thank the board and the residents of Wiscasset for their support. The next item that you have is a letter that Kim sent to me and I guess others, and talking about parking issues. She's here this evening if you have any questions regarding this. But just wanted to let you know. I did receive a couple of calls today from downtown residents who were concerned about the possibility that they might lose parking and that they have no place else to park because their apartments are over downtown businesses. And I did assure them that should the board ever be considering that, you'd hold a public hearing and discuss it to change that use. And that was not the reason for this item on the agenda this evening. So, Kim, I don't know if you want to speak to this at all, or if the letter speaks for itself.
I just wonder if, there were a lot of things said at the last meeting that seemed incorrect to me, that it stated in the minutes that parking overnight in that lot is illegal, but that is not the case according to the signage. So I don't know, where do you stand on this? What's happening?
So I'll just talk with you about the ladies that I spoke with today. We did talk about the sign, and it does say there's a 24-hour limit. And so I'm pretty practical. So what I said to them is you must leave the lot to go to work or move your car and do something so the 24 hours starts over. And none of you had communicated to me that you had any intention of changing any of that, and that's what I relayed to them.
Yes, Dave.
With that being said, that is a screwed up parking lot down there, because you've got a sign that says 8-hour parking, 24-hour parking. What is it? My point is this: it's an abused parking lot. For some reason, we're not getting it. You know, there's people down there that park there, and they stay there, they camp out there, they live there, basically. It's wrong. What we ought to do is this: anybody that lives downtown, anybody, put it on the website. You want a place to park? You park your car down there, because I can park my car down there. They're not entitled to anything down there. I don't care who they are. I lived downtown growing up as a kid. We didn't pull that BS, you know, and I think that's a crock. So you got two things going on down there: 24-hour parking, 8-hour parking. What is it? And you got people down there that abuse it. They will continue to abuse it. They have abused it all along. They abuse the 2-hour parking on the streets. They abuse that parking lot. What are you going to do about it? That's the thing. It's an abuse of the parking lot.
How is it an abuse, Steve? If the sign says, one sign says 8-hour parking, another one says 24-hour limit. I don't know how you determine which is which. But since the signs say that.
I understand, Vinny, that it says that. But we've got people that live down there. We do not. Do you think that we should provide the people who live down there a year-round parking spot? Do you think that?
As much as I think we should put a sewer line out Willow Lane so that people out there can have sewer. We do share the resources in town with other people, Steve.
Benny, you're off base on this.
No, I am not. Like you, Steve, I don't live downtown. Okay? If somebody
I know
is
the side that you and I take different sides of the thing. I'm saying they abuse it, Benny. You can park down there all night long, all day long, and it's fine. Anybody can park over there, Benny. Doesn't matter, but now you allow certain ones, they tie up the parking spot. They're there all the time. I don't understand what you're trying to say. You're going to say, give the people that live down there a place to park. They don't, the ordinance says, you know, as far as the apartments, that we're not entitled to provide parking for those people that live in the apartments, irregardless of what some people from away say.
Okay. Kim, please stand.
Sure thing. Short of getting rid of every parking space in town so that no one has a place to park, I did live over a shop, and especially in the wintertime when you can't park on the street, you have to park somewhere. And I get what you're saying, that if someone has a driveway, sure, they should be parking in the driveway. There's no law that says they have to, but it would be nice. But there are a lot of people that don't have parking. There was something else I wanted to ask you about.
Well, maybe that's a subject that we should bring up, is, we've discussed this before.
Yeah.
Permit parking. Maybe they should have to have a permit to park in that lot.
It's a whole nother can of worms.
That is
The
correct.
other
It's a
thing
whole
that-
can of worms.
Yes. The other thing that was in my, that was talked about last week, and it was in my email, it was plowing. And when I lived there, there was a resident who I presume was a longtime resident who came to me after like the second or third snowstorm and said, park in the back, the guy comes along, he plows in the front, and then after he plows in the front, everybody moves to the front, and he can come back and plow. So there is, I know it's loose, but it seemed to work very well for the time that I lived there. So I know that that was another issue.
Thank you.
So, Mary, have you observed folks not moving at all? I mean, the folks that I talked to today do live in apartments over the store, and it is a reality. We have them and we don't have parking. But they leave, they go to work, they take care of business. Are there cars that are just there and don't leave? To me, that's a different conversation.
Are we talking side streets or the parking lot?
No, the parking lot.
I haven't had any issues or concerns with the parking lot other than snow removal. I mean, I could care less that, you know, if somebody who lives over a business is parking in that parking lot. My only concern is when Public Works calls me because they can't plow the parking lot. And I did talk to some members of Public Works to try to figure out a way to, like if there's a storm coming, everybody park in the back of the parking lot so they can clear the front, but we've never really got anywhere with that. I have looked at the town ordinance on parking, and honestly, they're quite difficult to read and to understand. Now, the streets are clearly marked with the signs, overnight parking. Now, no overnight parking during November 15th to whatever the dates are. But, you know, and Steve's kind enough to leave notes on my door every morning on the vehicles that are violating that. I've had Officer Barnes, you know, put warning notices on vehicles. I think this morning with the storm, there was one vehicle parked down there, and it happened to be one of the ladies that works at Treats in the morning. She parked there before 4 a.m., but her vehicle got snowed in. She didn't realize, she forgot about the storm or whatever. But that was the only vehicle we had today with the storm issue. Whether there was parking lot issues, I never got a call from Public Works saying there was a concern. And frankly, I have a lot on my plate being a working chief than to go look at parking lots every morning. But I think the town could come up with something with Public Works to figure out how residents can park in the parking lots to accommodate everybody.
Thank you.
And I would be willing to work on those town parking ordinances to try to clean them up.
The job's yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine?
I'm looking at the photo of the parking lot,
It is confusing.
and it is confusing. Where it says overnight parking allowed and then a 24-hour limit, why don't we get rid of the 24-hour limit and just say allowed from, say, 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. or something? I mean, just pick times that would help. That would, just get rid of the 24 hours because it's all in the eye of the beholder rather than thinking about it. So, would that help, Steve, do you think?
I think we gotta do
Well,
something.
I think if you get rid of the 24 hours and just have a time,
Because that is a screwiest sign I've
and
ever
then we'll
read.
get the chief to work on some
So you're saying
ordinances
that
that,
there'd be no parking from 5 at night to 7 in the morning?
No, I'm talking about overnight parking.
From 5 PM to.
It says 24-hour limit. Instead of saying 24-hour limit, make it 5 or 5:30 PM to 7 AM.
That they can park there.
Overnight.
Overnight.
Yeah, this is just the overnight. I'm not talking about
Okay.
the one up above. The 8 hours should be, I don't know, during, you're gonna say daily 8 hours. I
That
don't
is
know.
a stupid sign.
I know that's how
Yeah.
Tupay, Tupay Harbor does it that way.
Well, it makes
Because
sense.
I was down there this summer for an event and talked to the police chief, and he told me I could park in any municipal parking lot after 5 o'clock, as long as I was gone by 7 AM.
There you go.
I wouldn't get towed.
It's all in who you know, chief.
Yes,
Good to
Jim?
have connections.
Yes, Jim?
Yes, I strongly suggest that this be tabled and a public hearing be held, because there are a lot of interested parties, some of whom, one of whom spoke with the town manager today, I received an email about it, who was told this would not be on the agenda or discussed tonight. They would have been here otherwise, I'm sure. I have letters that were sent to from a number of people who live down there who have vested interests, and they all need to be heard before any decision made, I feel.
And Jim, I said that earlier before you arrived, that they had called, and so I did make that clear.
I didn't think we were making a decision
No,
tonight.
we're not.
I will move that we have a public hearing on this at our next, can we do that in a week or do we need more time?
Gotta
We need to
post
do
it
the
for
ordinance
7
work
days.
first.
Do you want to do the ordinance work first, or you want to deal with the parking lot, chief?
We're just talking about the parking lot.
Okay.
I think I can do the parking lot and the ordinance all together.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Is it something you can have done before next Tuesday?
No, you said more than
How about-
one.
It depends on how busy Nicole is.
Because next Tuesday's our next meeting, that's what I'm saying.
I can try to have something by next Tuesday.
Okay. All right, so do you want to have a public hearing next Tuesday?
I don't think
10
we
days posted.
can, because it has to be in the paper, and I don't think that's enough time.
Okay.
We
got reprieve.
So the first
You
meeting
might get 2
in
weeks.
February, the 5th?
Well, I was going to suggest, I know we, instead of having the meeting on the 15th, why can't we have a meeting on the 23rd, is that it?
22nd.
22nd, have a week in between.
Well, we can. We want.
Can we do that?
For January, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I know, we changed the one on the 1st because of the holiday. We made it for tonight, and we haven't, maybe skip a week and then have one. That'll give us time to be able to have the public hearing.
Also eliminates 3 weeks between meetings.
Okay.
It'll be 2 weeks.
It'll be 2 weeks between meetings. Be back on that schedule, 2 weeks. Yes, Jim?
I realize it's town law, but shouldn't all abutters be notified in writing as well?
Regarding what?
There's public hearing notice requirements. So I wouldn't have any way, Jim, to notify people in apartments, because I wouldn't know who they were. And I think those are the folks that it impacts the most. I do have the numbers of the 2 folks I spoke to today, but I don't know how I would accomplish that, because I don't know who tenants are.
I can put notices on windshields in the parking lot.
Okay,
There you go.
I can put the public hearing notice on that, yeah, and it'll be in the paper and on the website. We can do that, sure. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so January 22nd, 6 o'clock?
Then,
That's the original motion, but you want to change the date, but there was no second yet.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor of changing the date to the 22nd? Thank you. Okay.
I thought the motion was to have a public hearing.
It is, to change the date and have the public hearing. It was a twofer, Jackie.
It was a two-for, 2 for 1.
Have the public hearing on the date of the deed,
Right.
so we can kill 2 birds with one stone.
Yes, I understand that, but was their motion
You're
was
right.
odd.
You're right, it is confusing.
Yeah.
So in your packets, you have the broadband survey documents. We do have them online. We do have paper copies available. There are some members of the Lincoln County Planning Commission team that are here to speak on this, just briefly. So, Mary?
I'll start. Thanks again for your time. So you might have read in the paper that Wiscasset's joined with Edgecombe and Dresden, Somerville, Westport Island, Wakefield, in order to try to begin some broadband planning. I'm sure, with all due respect to people who are still on dial-up, I know many of us are happy not to have dial-up anymore. But the world has really been changed by fiber and by wireless services. And so what we're looking to do is really identify opportunities for the towns to continue the small business growth that we all like, whether it's Somerville or Wiscasset. We're all looking to grow our economy, and having better service, broadband service is important. So we received a small grant from Connect Me to involve these 7 towns, and so we're in a planning phase right now. So Miriam's on the team, along with Pat Cloutier from the Chamber, Carla Dixine and Marty Fox represent Wiscasset on our team. And we've been getting the surveys out through the town website, which you were good enough to put on. We've contacted the library and a couple of the churches. And what we're looking to do is survey residents and businesses. And yes, we're trying to do this in like 4 or 5 weeks. So we're just trying to get a really quality response back from folks as opposed to 75% of the town. But the other thing we want to dive further into is what's going on in Wiscasset's businesses today that they're doing, that they're really looking to have really substantial improvements in broadband in the next few years. And so I think Marty and Carla have talked with a couple of businesses in Wiscasset, and I think you're still in the process of that. But I'd like to ask Carla if she'd be able to kind of just give you some highlights from a conversation she's had with a Wiscasset business.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. I just want to reiterate before I tell you, I had one conversation with Peregrine Turbine Technologies, who's been quietly developing their technology down by Mason Station. But before I say that, I would say that broadband and fiber are essential for Wiscasset. It's not just a choice. And I say that because I've been involved for the last 4 years as one of the co-founders of the Maine Broadband Coalition. I also work at Coastal Enterprises in Economic Development. And it is a central infrastructure in the 21st century. It's like what electricity was back in the 1930s. And we have to be on this. We don't have a choice as a town. And I'll give you the example of Peregrine Technology. I knew they were there, but I haven't really been paying much attention. They're a high-tech company. They have, some of you may know this, and I gather you sold them 2 of the houses down by Mason Station. But they have a patented thermal cycle for developing energy for power generation to various sized plants. They have 4 patents, 2 pending. And they're testing their technology in Sandia Labs in New Mexico. That's very prestigious. That says a lot about what kind of technology they're developing. If I remember the conversation, I didn't write this down, I think they've been there since 2003, doing the technology development and investing over $16 million in their company. And they would say, I talked to Mark Stevenson, who's their digital person, communications person, and he said that they are on the verge, of course every company says this, we're on the verge of big stuff. But what I want to point out is why they need broadband. They are doing big analytical data, which means they have to transfer data, both they have to take it down in terms of their own files and put it on upload. The capacity to put files or send files, uploading their files, is what's sorely missing on everybody's broadband, but particularly for a high-tech company like this. And they want to manufacture, assuming that their technology is verified, they plan to manufacture here in Wiscasset. They've already hired 8 engineers from local schools. People live in the surrounding areas. And eventually they say they're going to have to hook to fiber. And that's a question where they would pay that, and many large companies do. The bigger question is their workforce, who don't have access necessarily to fiber. And it's not good enough just to have DSL or to have copper. It's not fast enough, it doesn't have the bigger capacity. You can't manage the company remotely with just DSL. And people are scattered in Topsom, Wiscasset, Booth Bay, I forget where the other one was, Farmingdale. But it's not just Wiscasset, the whole state needs broadband. It needs it for this company, and it needs it to be able to attract people to town, and particularly to young people and millennials. They will be screening where they live more and more, and we're already seeing it, by what kind of broadband do you have. And if you don't have it, it's a real, I mean, it's gonna be a negative for Wiscasset. So I was inspired by the fact that we have this gem sitting there down in Mason Station. I hope their technology is proven, but the point is, what is the future? For the broadband committee to survive and for us to do our work, we need a selectman to be very active in this. When I've looked at what's happened around the state in groups that have passed this, and by the way, what's really interesting is very rural Maine is leapfrogging past us. Calais-Baileyville put in state-of-the-art broadband. They're looking at it in Piscataquis County. Millinocket is going to put in state-of-the-art broadband. Now granted, they've got other issues. Broadband's not the only thing they need for development. But if we do not pay attention, we will be bypassed. And we will not, everybody's after the young millennial. We have workforce issues, we have people issues, demographic issues. These will not be solved without helping with broadband as a basic condition for this town. So I'm very interested in this. I think it's the second committee I've been on since I've been quite busy at work. But particularly after I retire in June, I intend to spend a lot of time on this because I think it's really important. So I urge the select committee, or at least one or two of you, if not all of you, to get active on this. I think it's really important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
She was asking.
The next thing on the agenda is the rescue fire truck update.
So the last meeting, Bob had asked for an update on the truck with the generator, and so I checked in with TJ, and he said that the truck is still in Bangor, and it will be a few more weeks before it's diagnosed. Now that was as of the 31st of December, so that was when we prepared a lot of this. So they are working on it, and I'm not sure why it's taking so long, but I'll check in with him again for the meeting on the 22nd. So just wanted to let you know that. And then I have one last thing for the board. Get a copy too. I have to present to the Board of Selectmen this evening. I have made the decision to resign my position here in the town of Wiscasset as town manager. And so I am submitting this letter of resignation. My last day with the town will be February 8th. I first would like to thank Judy Colby for her leadership and support during my tenure as town manager. It's been an honor to serve the residents of Wiscasset, and I will be leaving my position on February 8th. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have known and worked with so many Wiscasset residents. I have a deep respect for the elected, appointed, and amazing staff members with whom I've had the privilege to work. I think it's important for the board to know that you have a very professional leadership team and staff members that embrace the principles of teamwork and customer service, and they'll continue to serve you. It's been my privilege to work with each of them. I will forever appreciate the many community members that have invested their time and energy in me personally. Their counsel has made me a better person and a humble leader. I'm not perfect, but a much better person because of their support. Thank you again to the residents of Wiscasset for the opportunity to serve, and I wish each of you and everyone in the town of Wiscasset the very best.
I had a breath. I accept this resignation with deep regret. And that's about all I can say at this point.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
thank you very much, Marion.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, thanks, Marion, for everything. You've been
Is-
so helpful to me.
Is there any other board business at this point? Yes.
The retaining wall down there that you parking lot, Peter, how long? Do we have any responsibility there?
I don't believe we have any responsibility at all. That, from what I understand, that is part of the project. Pike has been in contact with, DOT has been in contact with Pike Industries, and they will be repairing it. That's the last I heard of it.
Was it damaged or did it just fall over?
I don't know of.
From what I heard.
Bob, what did you do?
The new parking lot down there by Railroad Avenue, part of that retaining wall is not where it belongs. And I just didn't know what had happened to it.
I do want to bring a subject up. We have the resignation of Mary, and I know it's last minute. I would like the board's permission to possibly get a hold of Donna Garish from Peabody and see where we go from here. We only have 30 days.
Yes.
Do I have your permission to do so? I'm going to be meeting with Marion tomorrow. I was informed about this right before the meeting. I did not know. To get an idea of timeline, but we are going to need an interim town manager. So I would like to get a hold of Don, if that's all
I've got a
right.
name I can give you too, as a suggestion.
Yes. I know he's in Winthrop, I think, at this point, if I'm not mistaken.
We'll see when it sells.
Wyndham? Yeah, right now, but he may have somebody that he could have come here. Or be able to help us and steer us in the right direction, especially where it's getting close to budget time. I think we need to be very proactive on this issue. Okay. And like I said, I will be meeting with Marion tomorrow. And as soon as I've spoken to Dawn, I will be in contact with all of you. Anything else from the board at this time? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
So I went to count.
The way it is
They wanted to.
Two or three people mentioned it. Looks like you may have a new
To discuss where we go.
Where you meet now?
No, her contract is up, her contract is up in.
I appreciate it.
But yeah, well, that was hard.
I did not know anything. Behind closed doors. I'm making this thing out. If he doesn't have anyone with him, this is all.
Oh, yeah.
Like I just said, I took my resignation.
Yeah, I just
All right, I will be in contact with everybody.
Well, I started making them. A lot of them say you I've been meaning to get down this building. Well, I assume I could take it over every day. And the guys he said, take care of that. I guarantee that you're
Good enough.
He's pushing me.
Stupid thing she did. He said, "Did you see the sign? Give her money."
well, you know, you can't go wrong. All the things that my father had, it changed on campus. With David Bradley, David Bradley track.
That man got a 10 by 12 series campus. Real canvas.
Yeah, I'm
So
so
we
good.
put that on the car. Tires are
That's
good.
the only place to find it. I mean, I could go down here. You know, just get a few
And then the
things.
puncture fellow was Hallmark, was that their name?
Yep. Elgin, Oakwood.
Yeah.
Elgin and Sears, yeah.
That's the name of the big town up there. Yeah, with Sears is.
But
A friend of mine, she worked there 35 years. She handled the thing when you bought the refrigerator. They got on a list. Sale on appliances, you got a special mail. And I was in the hardware club, and we had a sale on tools or snow blowers or something. 35 years ago, gone. Started off in the men's class, ended up in the
We got a shoe. My mother was always
We had a guy was in grammar school nearby, and he was selling magazines and subscriptions to help the school. Anyway, he handed out, see his catalog, like that. He had it all metal. So, part of this thing, someone would go through, page 588, bottom right-hand corner, that lady's underwear, which is what the guy's doing. And they give you the price and everything else, no matter what you had, you knew what it
What are we doing with her?
I needed to lose wherever I went to Ames first. And no one had it. Amazon, $300 off and delivered.
Oh, absolutely.
Free delivery and no sales tax right to my door. Running in the garage. I took it out of the pallet, put a few things together and off I went.
Well, he wasn't in, way back, he was one of the first employees, wasn't he? Yeah, was he? Okay, yeah, because I remember Judy and I were on the board back then. He was the first person. He's not getting
I don't know what you're playing. You got his email? Yeah, I think you email. I sent him that every year from him. Oh, I never did. That's like having a telephone.
Yeah, I know, right?
Tell me you got it.
Oh, I knew it was in this. Yeah. I wondered if you might want to read it. There were some links in there. I did. Oh, God. And so,
Well, yeah, so what you're asking for is something that we're here.
well, I, you know, he's giving you up. He has given you good,
Well, he's done an excellent job. We just
yeah, that's all
We got a guy
right.
who was retired town manager, we had him twice, I think.
So I would-
We can show him, for instance, I was thinking about that.
Fire Maine, the weather's no good for you.
I keep looking at
Oh, wow.
the other day, one day they got some snow, and guys out there.
I'm trying to let that go.
Yeah, me too.
I'll see you, Bob.
Good night.
Yeah, and I said, hey, I'm send you an email about the French. They go, don't bring them here. They said, I want those weekends. I said, go get it.
The door.
Yeah, so now he's on his brand new thing for me. Oh, nice. Yes, my hero. Nice. The other big thing. All right, well, okay, girl.
We should at least be able to say hello. I don't know what this is silly, because I've got a whole bunch of things to either write you, something about, something.
We did it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's the last thing I went on to the sheet. No, she did it. She did it. It's
Anyway, it would be
It's,
fun to
it's
play.
like, oh, no, it went to the digital changer. And we had, fuzzy.
No, I'm so glad she's able, because she's been in every room along with it. All the other people, but we think she has to get out there. She's participating in this thing, otherwise, we're just talking to each other. So I will never take it seriously.
And I told you this.
Yeah.
Hi, are you my neighbor's one? You are, the woman that works for Yes.
They come Christmas.
Yes. Hi. Yeah, everybody's high now.